The S24 FE. Lots of people assume it can't do much because it is not the Galaxy S24. Well, that's wrong. Today, I'm going to take you through every single camera feature and how to use it on the Galaxy S24 FE. Let's go. So this video will be broken down into sections and you can sort of follow along with the chapters if you want. I'm going to start with some of the settings you should turn on, move into the photo section and the photo modes you can use, and then finish with video and selfies. Before wrapping up what this is actually missing compared to the base model S24, newsflash, it's not much. First thing you want to do when you launch the camera is go into settings. Hit the settings cog in the top left corner and jump straight into it. There's only a couple of things I'm going to recommend to turn on here. The first is shot suggestions. This will just help you light up your photo in a visually aesthetically pleasing way, according to the rule of thirds of photography. So Samsung have got some software in here that actually automatically has scanned millions of photos and will help you get the best composition. Turn that on in the settings. The other thing sort of goes along with that is scene optimizer. Now, it's all automatic, so you don't need to tweak anything. But with this turned on, it'll just recognize the scene that you're looking at and optimize the back-end settings and processing to suit. Whether it be a beach, whether it be outdoors, whether it be indoors, it sort of does its thing and then will optimize the color profile based on the photo you're taking a photo of. You'll find that in the intelligent optimization menu. Then I want you to turn on grid lines. Now this kind of, I guess, works in tandem with shot suggestions, but the way grid lines works is rather than letting the phone decide for you, you can use your own eyes to sort of decide. It sort of splits the screen up into like 9 grids, and then you can position things in the grid the way you like. If you want to know a little bit more about that and the composition of photography, you can check out this video here about how to take photos with your Galaxy S24. Same rules apply for this as well if this is what you're using. And then you can dive into Camera Assistant. There's a couple of different toggles you can turn on. The 2x button's a really good shortcut to activate. Some other toggles in here as well. You can have a play around with it, but make sure you download Camera Assistant from the Galaxy store because that will help. Okay, straight into photo modes. Starting with, of course, photo mode. When you launch the camera, and the easiest way to launch the camera is literally double press the power button and it will jump straight into the camera. That's no matter what screen you're on, whether the screen is locked, whether you're in an app, you double press that power button, you're straight in. So photo mode, we'll start up the top. There's some toggles and things that you can change. The ability, for example, to turn on the flash is up there. The ability to set timers also up the top. Change resolution and aspect ratio are probably the two main ones I want to focus on first. The aspect ratio is when you see 3x4, and there's some other numbers in here as well. Don't use anything other than 3x4. The 3x4 ratio is the full crop of the sensor. Anything else is cropping into the sensor a little bit, and you're losing detail and resolution. Whilst you think you might be capturing more, especially with the 9x16 or the full screen one, you're actually capturing less. You're better off taking the full photo and then cropping in afterwards. That's just the first thing to start with. Next to that is resolution. You'll see the 12 button, and if you want to change it to 50, you can instantly change that just by tapping on it. It goes to 50 megapixel. You're done. Next to that at the top, you have something called motion photo. Motion photo is Samsung's way of capturing a short video before the photo is taken. So it's about 3 seconds, and it's kind of just records and captures that as a little clip. And then afterwards, in the gallery, you can view that motion photo back. And there's a whole bunch of other things you can now do. You can extract it as a video. You can extract it and save it as a GIF. You can delete it altogether because it does take up a bit of extra storage. But that is where you can turn it on, in this little toggle up there. And then the one next to that is for filters. Now, there's one thing in here that I recommend turning off straight away. And it's in the face button once you've activated the filters toggle. Usually is off by default, but sometimes you might find it to be on. Go in here and turn it off. Turn off any smoothing, turn off any face filters, just turn it off. The filters, that gives you the option to pre-apply a filter before you take the photo, and you can see the visual representation of what that filter will look like from there. Then down the bottom, you have your cameras. So your ultra wide, your 1x, your 2x crop of the 1x camera, and then your 3x, and all the way up to 30 should you need it. Those buttons are down there, and that's what you can do with it. Now you can, with the shutter button, do a couple of different things. If you want to hold it down, it will start recording a video, and you can also hold it down and swipe up and it will lock it. But that can be customized. In the settings, you can make it so it actually will take a burst shot, or you can make a GIF out of it. That's what that can do, and you can customize it from there in the settings. As part of that as well is you can tap on the screen to adjust exposure. So simply tap on the screen, adjust the exposure slider, and should you want it to be locked on that exposure setting, and that's that area, hit the lock button. That's your photo mode. But that also works across all of the modes as well. It's just thought I'd highlight it here. Next, we swipe across to portrait. To swipe to the right, it's literally the one right next to photo mode in stock camera app before you customize it. The toggles at the top are very much the same. There's just no resolution toggle. And you have 3 cameras that you can use. The 1x, the 2x crop of that 1x, and the 3x. I'm not going to bother too much about focal lengths. Again, I've sort of dived into that video I shared earlier. That's also going to be in the description. Since I've got one of the most in-depth and well thought out portrait modes of any smartphone manufacturer that makes phones today. When you've got it pointed at a face and you see the little toggle down the bottom right, when you hit that toggle, it will actually bring up all of the different portrait mode options. So you've got blur, you've got studio, you've got something that can make the background black, you've got something that can make the background white. You've got lots of different ones in here that are really fun to play with. You also can control the strength of the effect as well before you take the photo. So you can see what the blur or the effect that you've chosen might look like. Once you've taken the photo, you can actually go back and adjust it afterwards. So if you didn't like the effect you chose, in the gallery, when you swipe up on the photo, you have the option, and there's a button there to go back and change it. Because it's all software based, it's a software applied sort of filter, I guess you could say, that's put over the top of the photo, and you can adjust as you go, as you can see here. I really like that option just because it gives you that freedom to not be stuck with what you've chosen to start with. You can go back afterwards. Now, if we jump into the More tab, there is some more photo modes that we can see, and you do that by swiping left and getting and accessing the More tab. In here, you've got the first one right at the top left corner is Pro Mode. Pro Mode is Samsung's ability to control your camera with more fine detail. So you can control things like your ISO, your shutter speed. You used to be able to control aperture when Samsung had dual aperture, but that's not here anymore, and I don't know why I brought it up. And down the bottom is sort of the first point of call for that, where you can go in and change all of those settings. Things like exposure value sliders. There's also your focus slider. So rather than it being autofocus, you have an option for manual focus with a manual focus slider. And it gives you like a peaking as well, where if it's in green, that's the part that's going to be in focus. It's really good. It actually allows you to take some really nice controlled depth of field photos. You should try it out for yourself. There's white balance as well. And then if you go up the top, you'll see there's the resolution, there's the aspect ratio. There's other things too, like your matrix metering. That's also up there. You can have spot metering, you can have matrix, you can have center weighted. That's up the top. And then you can pre-apply things like tint with that one at the top right corner as well. The Pro Mode is very, very well controlled, and it gives you that control to go out and capture the style that you want. And it also saves it as a raw copy, but you do have to turn that on in the camera settings first. So make sure if you want to capture raw, you go and do that before you start using Pro Mode. Back into that More tab, we have the nighttime or night mode. Night mode is pretty simple. You simply point it at the subject in low light situations, and then using its nighttime algorithm, it'll decide how long it needs to be capturing photos for. So you'll see the little number down the bottom right corner. You can max it out so it goes to its maximum, or you can leave it at auto and let the phone decide. But once you do that, you just need to keep your phone still, and then it will capture it, layer and stack those images together, and give you a result. Night mode also does work automatically from just the main photo mode. When it's in low light situations, it automatically does apply it in the bottom right corner. You can turn that off if you don't want it there. The next one is food mode. Food mode's really like an underrated mode, because the whole idea of it is if you've got a nice plate of food, and I guess this started with the whole Instagram generation taking photos of food, you could point it at your plate of food and have it sort of boost and vibrate the colors and give it more punch and contrast. There's also a couple other things in there too. You can create like a depth of field or like a blurred focus effect, where using like a slider or like a square, you can highlight your plate of food and it'll blur everything else around it. And again, using its sort of processing, it'll boost the colors of the food as well. making it look like your food is really, really appetizing, making everyone really hungry. The good thing with food mode as well, it's not just limited to the main camera. You have the 2x and the 3x that you can use as well. Then we have panorama, and panorama is very, very simple these days. You just simply launch panorama, press the shutter button, and then move your camera around. It's also smart enough to know if you're going the other direction. So if you're going from top to bottom or bottom to top, it will automatically change the view and sort of go with your movement, which I think is nice. You can also use the ultra wide and the main camera, which is really nice. And then the last one, which kind of blends photos and videos, is single take. Single takes has been my favorite Samsung camera mode ever. And then, yes, I know dual recording has come out, but I still think single take's my favorite. I use it all the time with my kids. What I really like about it is just the simplicity of letting the phone do the job for you and letting the subject of the photo do their thing. Rather than sort of choreographing them or making them do something or stand still, let them be themselves. And then let single take capture the moments that it sees fit. Whether that be jumping, whether that be smiling, whether that be running around. Single take will compose all those photos together and give you an album of videos and photos. Single take now allows you to use either the ultra wide, the 1, the 2, or the 3x sort of crops or sensors. And voila, you've got a little option as well to extend it by an extra 5 seconds should you need it. Like if the moment's gone, you don't need it, you don't need to add it, but it's there as an option to add. Then in the album later, you can see what it's compiled. It's done things like a best shot with a little crown on it. It's got a boomerang. It's got a little video that's made with music, a little highlight reel, slow motion, and just the original clip as well to go with it. It's very, very good. You can choose what you want single take to capture as well in that top right corner, but honestly, just leave it as is. You'll be happy with your results. And now we move on to video. The video part of the S24 FE, a lot of people probably expect it to not be as good as something like the Galaxy S24. As you'll see at the end, that's just not true. Starting with the main video mode. So starting along the top, you've got the usual things like the flash. However, right next to that, you have super steady. We'll get into that in a moment. I want to start with the resolutions. So again, you've got the aspect ratio, but as I said before, stick with the 16:9 for video, the highest resolution you can get. You then got the resolutions, as I said. The good thing with the S24 FE is you're not actually missing out on any resolutions that the S24 can do. You have all the way up to 8K 30, you have 4K 60, you have 4K 30, full HD, and everything sort of in between. It's got everything you need, and it's all there. And that top part is where you can sort of change and toggle it. Where you really want to focus on here with video is the extra stuff that the video mode has available to you. The first is super steady, as I mentioned. In that sort of top row, when you press super steady, the little action man that's running, you'll actually see that it changes the interface of the camera. What it does is it crops in from the ultra wide sensor, like really crops into the middle of it, with the whole purpose being that it's going to sort of help stabilize your footage. Work almost like a GoPro or like an action camera. You have some options for resolution. You can go all the way up to Quad HD 60 FPS, which is quite high resolution and really high frame rate. And for action shots, that's going to give you some really clear and stable and smooth footage. You've got the option to choose to start from the ultra wide camera or the 1x, and the 1x being it'll crop in even heavier from that 1x camera to further stabilize your footage. And then you just start using it. And it's really, really stable. And you can see a bit of a difference between super steady and not super steady. Even though stabilization is quite good already, super steady just gives it that extra bit, that sort of different feeling and a different look about it because it's working like an action camera in a way. The other one to highlight here is auto framing. Samsung in the bottom right corner, or depending on which way you're holding the camera, it could be top right, there's a little auto framing icon. Auto framing is so good. The way this works is it allows you to turn this on first, and then you position something in the frame, let the camera be still, and it will work to follow that thing around in the frame. So whether that be you dancing stupidly in your lounge room, or whether that be your kids out playing football, you can keep it stable and let the phone sort of track using the cameras on the back. So you can start it from the ultra wide, or you can start it from one of the other cameras on there. But if you start it from the ultra wide, it gives you the widest field of view, and then it will work to zoom in and out from that ultra wide camera. You also have options for resolution. It can be either full HD or 4K. 4K is obviously going to be your best bet because you could either edit it in later or it's actually cropping in to keep the high resolution. So maybe just use that. But that's where auto framing is. And you literally just need to position the camera still and it will do the rest for you. It's awesome. Now, video has got a lot in the More tab. That video mode there has a lot in itself, but there's a lot more you can do in the More tab. Starting with Pro Video mode. Pro Video mode has got all of the same controls that you have in Pro Photo mode. Your ISO, your shutter speed, your exposure value, your focus adjuster. So if you wanted to create that nice sort of focus slider, you can do that as well. It's also got all the resolutions, including full HD 120, but no 4K 120. But the S24 can't do that either. Only the Ultra can. But the thing I want to focus on here is your audio controls. Let's take a look at them. Pro Video mode has an option to control the microphone settings. So depending on what you've got plugged in, so at the moment, this is just the onboard mics and it's set to Omni. But as you can see in the screen recording, you have the option to use things like Bluetooth. You have the option to use things like Bluetooth Mix or USB. So you can plug something in, or if you've got a Bluetooth set of earphones like Galaxy Buds, for example, you can connect that and use that to be your recording microphones. There's also a microphone slider as well, and you can slide that up or down to adjust the decibel volume of the voice or whatever it is you're recording. If it's too loud, slide it down. If it's too high, slide it up. That's Pro Video mode on the S24 FE. The next video mode after Pro Video mode is slow motion. Now, Samsung did away with super slow-mo, which some people were upset about, but it was like a feature probably like 0.5% of people used. They have tried to replicate it inside the settings in the editor, but let's not worry about that. Let's worry about how to use slow motion. Slow motion is very simple. You have resolution and frame rate options at the top. You toggle them. You've got UHD 120 or you've got Full HD 120 and 240. That's the options that you have. When you point it at your subject, it'll just capture whatever you're choosing to capture. And then when you go back into edit it later, you'll see some options to be able to slow down even further, should you want to. And you can adjust the bits of the video that you want to be slowed. Capturing 4K 120 gives you the best in resolution, but then also gives you the sort of a really good frame rate to slow it down. So you could do 4K 30, which is going to be quarter the speed of what you started with, and it'll be slow and a high detail at the same time. You then got hyperlapse. What I really like about Samsung's hyperlapse is the options that you have. It goes either really, really fast, so 300 times speed, or it can go a little bit slower. The great thing is too, there's also an automatic option, which will just determine how fast it can go based off what it's recording. And it tells you that. When you change to the certain toggles, it actually tells you what to use it for. Whether that be people walking past or clouds in the sky or the night sky, the options are there. You also have an option for time, so you can have it set for a certain time period to record, and you have resolution for full HD or 4K options there. Next to that, you have portrait video mode. Love portrait video mode. It is such a powerful tool, and for me, it's sort of creates some cinematic content from your phone. You have an option to set the resolution, so you either got 4K 30 or Full HD 30. Just use 4K 30, and you have an option to cycle the zoom from 1x to 3x and in between whilst you're recording. Previously, they could never do that. Now you can. Whereas I think it does only use the main camera, but the fact that you can record and zoom in portrait video is a big difference to what you used to be able to do. Let's have a bit of a look at the sample of it. This is portrait video mode with the Galaxy S24 FE. As you can see, it kind of gives you that nice soft focus. You can adjust that as well whilst you're recording. I haven't done that. I don't have enough hands to be able to do it, but you've got the option to sort of have that nice soft depth of field just from your phone. It's really cool. And the last video mode is dual recording. It's my favorite video mode Samsung have made, just because of the sheer utility of it. You can record from two cameras and have them be saved as separate videos at the same time. So you have that little toggle at the top where you can actually save it as separate or as one video. The single video will just save it as it's previewed on the screen, whereas the separate videos will save it as full 16:9 videos, separate, and there'll be no overlay or anything like that. Up next to that at the top, you can see the little toggle to change the view. So it can be split or picture-in-picture. That is what I mean by preview. So if it's previewed as that and you've got it set to save as one video, that's how it'll save. But individual videos is the way you'd want it. That's definitely the toggle you'd want to turn on. Sort of above where it says dual recording, you've got the option to choose your lenses. So you pick your two cameras, whether it be ultra wide or 3x, or whether it be selfie camera and ultra wide, depending on what you want. You choose them. And then in the top right corner of the ones you've selected, you'll see a little white box. You can choose where that sits in the preview screen. So whether you want the ultra wide to be the top corner and the 3x to be the full screen, that's up to you. You just choose that here. It's such a powerful tool. Because of the fact it saves 2 separate videos synced with audio perfectly, for editing purposes, it's amazing. So I highly recommend using this at things like kids' sports games like I do, because you get the full picture and you get to crop in and save a separate video of the subject of the video, like my son playing. That's why I love it. Now, a lot of these modes work with the selfie camera, so I'm not going to go over all of them again with selfies. What I want to do is highlight a couple of different cool ways to take a selfie. So for example, you can use things like palm selfie. The way palm selfie works is I hold up my palm and it will capture after a countdown, because it can recognize it. And away you go. We've also got voice commands. Now, this isn't just for the selfie camera. This can work when the camera's facing the other way. But the way this works is I can say, smile, and it'll do the job. Capture. Done. That way, if you've got something in your other hand, you don't need to necessarily put it down. You can just use either the palm selfie or the voice capture to be able to do it. So that is how you use the S24 FE's camera. What's it missing? Well, the big obvious non-inclusion is Expert RAW. The S24 FE does not have the capability. And I think largely in part due to the fact that the ultra-wide and the 3x sensors aren't that good. Because in Pro mode, you can't even use the selfie camera with the S24 FE, whereas you can on the Galaxy S24. Other things too, like in hyperlapse, you can use other cameras with the S24. You can't with the FE. So there is some really, really subtle differences that it doesn't have, but pretty much every single camera mode functions the same and is here on the FE. So what are you really missing? There's not much. You only really have to decide now is whether you like the size and performance of the FE and the display versus that on the Galaxy S24 or S24 Plus. Speaking of cameras, I have got the Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom. I'm definitely looking forward to making a video on this sometime in the near future. Let me know in the comments what type of video you want me to make, whether it be a camera comparison to the S24 Ultra, or whether you want me to actually use this as a phone in 2024 and review it. Now that I said that out loud, I'm already potentially regretting it. Let me know in the comments below. Hit subscribe to check that out when it drops, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You!